I'm a gambling addict, but I quit. I started by betting on daily fantasy sports, but by the end of my gambling, I could spin a slot machine in my pocket and I would know based on the sound playing through my headphones how much money I had won or lost. So many people out there are struggling with a gambling problem right now, and they might not even know it. But if you're here, then maybe that means that you know for sure that you or someone you love is struggling right now and is ready to change. If that second point sounds like the situation that you're in, then send this video to your loved one. Because over the next 15 minutes, I'm going to share exactly how I've gotten myself to 650 days clean from my gambling addiction, and how you can do the exact same thing if you are ready to begin the process of changing for the better right now. Let's assume that it's day one for you. You made your final bet last night, and now you've woken up with the motivation to make a real change. Great. You're ready for step one. Step one, find alternative things to do with your time, and preferably things that make you feel good about what you're doing or build you up as a person. So, when I first quit gambling, I had just spent the last night really screwing up my life. I didn't quit on a win or a high note, right? I quit after a 12-hour binge gambling session in a casino. Now, what I really was missing the first time that I tried to quit gambling was something to do with my time that meant something to me. So that first day on November the 13th of 2022, when I woke up and it was my first full day clean from gambling, I sat down and I thought, what can I do to fill my time? The last time, what I had tried to do was play tennis, basketball, pickleball, stay active, read, journal, meditate, go to the gym, and all of those things helped. But what I was missing was understanding where I was going next. Because for so long in my life, right, everything was outlined for me. I knew I had to get good grades so that I could go to college, so that I could get a job, so that I could be happy and rich, is what I thought I was being told. Of course, that's a whole different problem that we're talking about there. But it was the first time in my life now that I had no clear cut direction other than don't gamble. And so it was really difficult for me until I started thinking about who do I want to become? What is the person that I want to be doing today? And what it ended up being was creating this very content here for you. And it's not like I picked up a camera and became famous or anything like that, or even did well in the beginning. In fact, my first videos were quite awful. But that's okay, because what the point is that you're keeping yourself busy and you're taking time away from gambling while putting that time towards something, anything else that could provide meaning in your life. Now, what you probably don't want to do is what my old friend Robert told me the very first time I went to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting. And Robert said that he would go out back and stare at the grass all day. Well, that wasn't going to cut it for me, but his intentions were pretty pure when he said that. What he was saying is anything is a better alternative to gambling, but there really are tiers to this situation. Find something to do with your time that you can get better at, that you're not going to just get addicted to, and that it can eventually be something that you use to give back to the world. For me, it was creating this content. For you, it could be writing a book. It could be picking up yoga and then trying to teach it to your friends. It could be learning a meditation practice. It could literally be anything that isn't gambling, and it will leave you better off. But just pick things that are going to leave you happier, more educated, more healed than just staring at grass. And if you're totally lost in this process, then think back to what you used to do before you started gambling and try there. Because we have this idea in our head that this thing sucks now. I don't want to do this. For me, it was like playing tennis, right? And the reason that it sucks is because our brains have become accustomed to getting their dopamine and pleasure in an intense hit from gambling. So the shocking news is that no matter what you do, you're going to feel like it sucks, even if it's the thing that you end up loving the most in your life, like me with this content. Because in the beginning, our brains are sick and they need to rewire themselves. The only way to start feeling better, to have less gambling urges, and find more pleasure in life again is to take time away from gambling. And finding things to do with your time is the exact recipe for success in doing just that. There's a concept called neuroplasticity, and I won't dive too deep into it because it's very technical, but it basically states that as you stop gambling, your brain will naturally rewire the dopamine pathways, and you will find pleasure in those things that you used to love, ever so slightly more every day. It's estimated that up to 6% of the world population struggles with a gambling problem. If you know anyone, and it can be yourself, that is struggling, then smash that subscribe button because I want to help you to avoid making the same mistakes with your life that I made with mine for entirely too long. Moving on to step two, limit access to money that will tempt you to gamble. This is going to be a big ego hit to many of you because it was a massive one for me. But around the second or third day that I quit, I recognized that I was still feeling temptations, like literally right away. And the temptations were stemming from the fact that I had debts that I wanted to pay back instantly. I didn't like the feeling of owing people money. It made me feel inferior, and it made me feel like I had to solve it as soon as possible. But my way of solving it was always to gamble. It was never to get another job. It was always, let's figure this out today rather than over the next couple of months. And so what was really, really important was that I got rid of my access to doing that damage in my life. I had my family take the passwords to my bank account, change them, switch the email so that I couldn't change it back, and then I actually cut up my debit and credit cards in a very dramatic way, threw them into the trash. What the big ego hit came from the fact that now I only carried cash, and it was the amount of cash that I had budgeted for the week. I could no longer overspend. I could no longer deposit into online accounts or buy crypto to deposit into online accounts. I was basically trapped and stuck with what I had in my hands because most of my gambling was online and that wasn't a temptation. Being a 23-year-old, 24-year-old at the time, and having my family manage my bank account really wasn't a thing to brag about. It wasn't feeling like a blessing. It was actually feeling like a curse. But it turned out to be a blessing in disguise because what happened was, since I didn't have access to these resources, when I would feel an urge to gamble, I couldn't actually afford to do it. I wasn't stashing up cash on the side because I had to spend it to survive. And so when I would have those urges, I'd be like, oh, I want to gamble. Let me go do it. Oh, wait. I don't have any money. I don't have any money to gamble. And that actually made a huge difference. It sucked a lot. Okay, it sucked a lot. But not being able to light my life on fire on a moment's notice, that was an amazing, amazing thing. And I highly recommend that you do exactly that if you are struggling. And this is something you can do on day one. Have a loved one control your finances so that you don't go down that same dark road that you've kept going down for years. Which brings us to step number three, self-exclude from the casinos to limit your access to gambling itself. The original date of my last bet was February 8th of 2022. But in all my videos, you'll notice that I say November 12th of 2022. And that's because I relapsed on that day. But what led to that relapse was that I had moved from New Jersey to Pennsylvania. And a couple of months went by, but I recognized something very important after a few months. And it was that when I had self excluded, which is voluntarily banning yourself from playing at the casinos, and it's something you can do on casino websites. I'll link a video to that up here so that you can check that out if you're interested. But when I did my self exclusions, it was for the state of New Jersey, not the state of Pennsylvania. And so now I recognize that there was no limitation. There was nothing blocking me from placing a bet. And it wasn't long, maybe a day or two, before the temptation arose and I found myself gambling on sports in the morning. That would turn into the 12-hour gambling binge that I had mentioned earlier on in this video. So it's very important that no matter where you live, you make sure that you're self-excluding from every option that you have to gamble that you can think of. Because when a temptation does arise, if it takes you 15 minutes to make a new gambling account, that might be enough time for you to think through the decision that you're about to make. Whereas if it takes you 5 seconds to log on and place a bet, there's not a lot of time to fight those urges. The entire point of doing a self exclusion is to make it more difficult, less accessible for you to gamble. It's never going to be impossible, and that's the sad reality of the way gambling exists online today. You'll never be able to fully avoid gambling if you're not actively trying to do so. And so, with a self exclusion, make it difficult for yourself to motivate you to stay on the right path. And it will help you. I promise that. It's something that I did immediately on that next day when I recognized I don't want to end up back at this casino tomorrow night after I feel a little bit better. I need to self exclude in the state of Pennsylvania right now. And that's exactly what I did. So, as far as I am aware, I am banned from every casino that I've ever gambled with, and I am very, very happy that that is the case because the temptations, they can't impact me anymore. And now step 4, which I believe is the most important step. Go to support group meetings and or build a community to be accountable to when it comes to your gambling. 650 days clean from a gambling addiction, and I'm still going every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock to my Gamblers Anonymous meeting. Do I need to be there to make sure I don't gamble that week? I don't think so, but honestly, I like the routine. When I first got myself away from gambling, I had to go to that meeting, or else I would be feeling intense urges the entire week to go and gamble. That meeting kind of put my head on straight in a way. It wasn't that I heard anything groundbreaking every single night that I went in there, but it's the idea of now being accountable to a group. When I would go in there on Tuesday nights, I would say, "My name is Rob M, and I made my last bet November the 12th of 2022. If I bet again, I would have to go in there and explain that and explain to the group why that happened. That little extra piece of motivation is huge in keeping you on the right path. And also, hearing what other people have gone through will remind you of why you are trying to stay away. This disease, it tricks us into believing that the negative memories, oh, they were just bad luck. Don't worry about it. It'll get better. And we eventually go back, yet the same thing keeps happening. So what you gain from a support group is not only accountability for yourself, but then you'll hear someone come in that made their last bet yesterday, and they'll be crying, in debt, depressed, angry, furious sometimes. Maybe they're getting kicked out of the house, losing their job. There's a ton of negative consequences that they could be experiencing. And that doesn't mean that we want to see that for them, right? But seeing it is a constant reminder of why we are staying away from this disease. So these are the 4 steps that I've consistently used every single day to keep myself honest and keep myself away from gambling. However, I want to throw a massive, massive disclaimer out there. Just following these 4 steps is not going to mean that every day you're going to be riding on rainbows and shitting sunshine, right? Sometimes you're going to have a bad day. But what the difference is between having a bad day when you're actively addicted to gambling and when you're in recovery is that when you're actively addicted to gambling, your bad day is going into life-crippling debt, lying to those that you love, experiencing anxiety, losing sleep, getting angry, experiencing remorse, horrible negative emotions that will carry for the rest of your life. When you're in recovery, a bad day might mean that you stubbed your toe. It might mean that, like, you had to work a couple extra hours because your boss asked you to. Like, they're like regular life problems. The point that I want to express is like, you will be happier. That doesn't mean that every day is filled with constant happiness, right? Now that you're in recovery, now that you're following these 4 steps I've outlined here today, you have a chance to experience life. Whereas before, life was passing you by as you were constantly chasing after that next win. Now, life is still life. Shit happens. It's not always going to be a great day. But remember that now that you have left gambling behind, you have a chance in this life. A chance that you would never have if you kept spinning that wheel. If you've made it to this point in the video, it means that you are now equipped with my full plan to recover from a gambling problem and live a better life. If you want even more motivation to quit, then I want you to check out this video where I share how Vegas manipulates us to increase their profits every single day. Now, until you get everything sorted out in life, just focus on the present moment. We have to get better. We have to. But all of it is going to happen one day at a time.